Well, the region, the world, waiting for Israel's response following Iran's massive missile attack earlier this month. For more, we can speak to Lancaster University's Simon Mabon. Hello to you, Simon. Why now? More than a week after Iran's attack, why has Israel not struck back?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, I guess. We hear officials from Israel, from the United States and elsewhere saying that Israel is waiting to pick the right time to attack. It's waiting to make sure that it hits the right types of targets at the right time, at the time of their choosing. And of course, this all just contributes to a wider sense of fear that many across the region are having right now, and especially those in Iran, fearful that an attack from Israel will come, not knowing where and when. And it creates this horrible climate of anxiety, uncertainty. And all the while, they're seeing images of destruction from Gaza, from Lebanon, and from beyond. And it's a really precarious moment right now.
Yeah, you say choosing the right targets. What options are on the table?
Well, I guess that depends who you ask. For the Israelis, perhaps all of the options are on the table, which would include the nuclear sites, which would include oil and gas refineries, infrastructure, the political elite of the Islamic Republic, military targets. We just don't know what the calculations are from Mr. Netanyahu and others in Israel. But we do know that the United States is putting pressure on Israel not to hit nuclear targets, probably not to hit oil and gas targets for fears about the reverberations. We know that states across the Persian Gulf, Arab states such as Saudi Arabia, the UAE, Qatar, and others are saying do not hit nuclear sites, do not hit oil and gas sites for fear of what would then happen. There have long been rumors that if Iranian oil and gas targets are hit, then Iran will reciprocate across oil and gas targets across the Gulf region. The reverberations of that for security and for the global economy would be huge. So I guess it all boils down to what Mr. Netanyahu thinks the right approach is, and if Mr. Biden has got the ability and indeed the inclination to put pressure on him to stop escalating things further.
But all these concerns about caution, is any of that coming up between Netanyahu and his war cabinet? Israeli watchers say that the war cabinet more gung-ho than the prime minister.
Yeah, well, we know that his war cabinet is comprised of people with a very serious ideological bent. We know that there is a serious ideological vision at the heart of this war cabinet. And weirdly, given what has happened over the past year, it may be that Mr. Netanyahu is the more pragmatic figure in that war cabinet, which is a deeply concerning thing to say in light of the catastrophic death toll that has been inflicted over the past year. So there is that, but then there's also growing pressure from the West, from the international community. There are concerns about escalation. And so he is ultimately the prime minister and is able to take these decisions should he wish.
Yeah, concerns about escalation. In the meantime, what is Iran doing? How is it preparing, anticipating an Israeli response?
Well, it's trying to position itself as saying, look, we are still a valid, a live player in regional politics, despite the broader sort of PR and strategic battle that's been fought. It was hit badly by the loss of Hassan Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, and by a number of other prominent figures associated with the Islamic Republic, or indeed part of the Islamic Republic's security infrastructure being killed. So what it's trying to do now is posture, is say, look, we still have this deterrent capability. We are not giving up on our quote unquote resistance capabilities and credentials. So senior Iranian officials are flying out to Beirut. They're visiting Dahia. They're showing that they are still there for their allies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and others. And they're trying to say, we are still live. We are still in this. We are not just going to be subsumed in the machinations of regional and global politics. But it's a posture. It's a big posturing here. And Iran is in a very difficult position.
Yeah, this Sunday, Iran's foreign minister said the country has no red lines when it comes to defending its people or its interests. Is that posture or is that a threat?
That's posturing. Of course it's posturing. The Islamic Republic has a very clear ideological bent. Of course it does, by virtue of the system of government that is in operation. But it is also a pragmatic state. We've seen that time and time again. We've seen it with the normalization agreement with Saudi Arabia from 2023, which feels like a long, long time ago. We know that Iran is in a difficult position economically, socially, politically. And so ultimately, the Islamic Republic wants to survive. It's trying to find a way that will allow it to survive in the face of this huge pressure from Israel, this huge global pressure on it. But it is a pragmatic state underneath the posture, underneath the bluster. We have to remember that. And I think that's the only thing that can give us a little bit of solace that some type of diplomatic resolution can be found here.
Yeah, well, Israel not listening to the U.S.'s concerns, Israel calling the UN Secretary General a persona non grata, reiterating that again. So what does need to happen for there to be a breakthrough in terms of a diplomatic breakthrough?
Well, I've been asked this question a lot, and sadly, if I had the answer, I would be either incredibly wealthy or have a Nobel Prize. And unfortunately, I have neither. There are things afoot. There are people working incredibly hard, people much, much smarter than me, working hard, working back channels, trying to find ways of getting the Israeli war cabinet and the Israeli political elite to realize that this is not actually in their interests for a wider escalation. The problem is there are some in that war cabinet who think that escalation to de-escalate, which is a very strange phrase that's been used time and time again, there's a view that that is the way out of this for Israel in the longer term. Unfortunately, I think that is a huge strategic mistake for Israel. And more importantly, it is a devastating thing for the people of the region, as we're seeing in Gaza, as we're seeing in Lebanon, as we've seen time and time again in Iraq, in Syria, in Yemen. Bombing is not the way out of this. Military action is not the way to create peace.
Yeah, the brief lull that we saw this weekend is over after the Jewish holiday Yom Kippur has passed. Do you think the Israeli response is imminent?
I would imagine it's coming in the next few days, if not sooner. The thought would be if there isn't a quick response, then there would be a sense of uncertainty, of anxiety within that war cabinet, and that would not be acceptable, I don't think, to Mr. Netanyahu and others. So I would imagine it will come at some point. There are rumors on X right now that it is imminent, but we've heard all of this before. I guess it's about how the whole episode is framed by the Israelis, and how they justify what is happening and when it happens, more importantly, that they will be concerned about.
Simon, thank you very much. Simon Mabon from Lancaster University. Thank you.